सर आप ब्रेक ले लीजिए। Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the today's program. This is the second day of the program. Am I audible to all? I kindly request all the participants to switch on your camera. All the participants, please switch on your camera and keep your microphone muted. All the participants, please keep your camera on. We'll start the session in couple of minutes. We're just waiting Dr. Parmar to join because we just finished few minutes before. Today the session was extended. The 5 to 7 o'clock batch was little bit extended, so that's why we had started a little bit late. So let's wait for a couple of minutes and we'll start. In case you guys have any queries regarding study material, payment gateway, or anything, I will be able to answer now. Those who have any queries regarding the program can ask me now.
So can we pay after the workshop, like 4 days?
The last day of the payment will be on Friday, because
Okay.
Saturday we issue the certificate, so we will not able to grab the payment, any payment after Friday. So Friday is
Okay,
the
sir.
last.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other queries? Okay, so let's wait for Dr. Parmar and we'll start. Just few more minutes.
Hi everyone. Am I audible to you all?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's start the session. Okay. Just a moment. Share my screen with you. Are you getting my screen on your window? Okay. That's nice. So I just let's start the session with a few more statistics. Okay. So today we study the measure of central tendency, and later on we study about the measure of dispersion correlation analysis. So first some value which represent the whole data, better value with which we could by which we could represent the whole data is called the central tendency. Just like you know that in the parliament we select one member of parliament, MP from our constituency, who represents our constituency in the national level. The same way here, for the representation of the data we use some central tendency, or we have three way to select three techniques we have to uh, measure the central tendency of the data. So first one is, if we talk about the first one is the mean, second is the median, and third one is mode. If we talk about the mean, uh, mean is we know that mean is an aggregate measure. We add on all the value and divide by the total number of values. So it is the aggregate measure. Mean is aggregate measure. If we talk about the median, median is a partition measure. And if we talk about the mode, it is a frequency measure. Frequency measure. So aggregate measure, if you see the mean, so I'm writing some hypothetical, some data here. This is my data. And this value and this value are called the extremes of the data. Okay. This is the minimum value and this is the maximum value. And these both values are called the extremes of the data. If I if we get the mean of this data, whatever the mean, we are not going in that computation. If I change here, instead of 2, if I put 4, so the mean will change or remain same? of this data. Yeah, mean will change or remain same. Yeah, only one is I think attending this session. Okay, will change. Mean will change. So this, if we change the extreme value, है ना? So the mean will change. So we could say that mean is very sensitive to extremes. It is sensitive to extremes. If we do minor change in the extremes, the mean will change. What is the median of this data? Median is the value of middlemost term. So what would be the median of this data? Somebody can tell me. What is the median in this data? Okay. 13 is the median of this data. Now, if I changing, instead of 2, I am putting 4, the median will change or remain same? Yeah. Median will be same. There will be no change in the median. So median is not sensitive to extremes. And similarly, mode is also not sensitive to extremes. Okay. One more thing I would like to discuss with you. Whenever we get the mean of a variable, it would be a unique mean. There not be a two mean of a same data. It would always be a unique. Median will also always be a unique mean. But mode may be more than one. It may be bi-modal, it may be tri-modal also, 3-mode, it may be 4-mode. Okay. So it is not compulsory. It should be a unique. Right? So it may be more than one. Okay. So why we are studying that the sensitive to extreme and not sensitive to extreme, I explain you. Whenever we get some data, in the data set we have different variables, and each variable we have some values or some categorical data. If we have some numeric data or the continuous data we have, and the data always, the sum of the data always have some deficiency. It will not be the clear cut data. You will get the healthy data, and there may be some remedies in the data. And the general remedies which we found in the data is one is the missing value in the data. Some values may be missing in the some row, some column. Okay. And the second remedy, we could say that it is like outliers in the data. Outliers in the data. Okay. So missing values, everybody know there is no value in the some certain cell. It is a missing. But what is outlier? Can somebody explain me the outlier? What does it mean by outlier? Extreme case, correct?
Hello?
Yeah.
Outliers are extremes. Either they are extremely high values or extremely low ones.
Okay. The value which are very different from the other values in the data is called the extremes, outliers generally. Okay. So we have to see three sort of treatment. Value, we have the first treatment. First treatment, now am I audible, clear? There is some internet problem over there. Why it is so today? Just wait, it is getting some instability in the internet. Now I am getting properly or not? I am audible now? Okay. There is some internet problem nowadays in this area. So missing values, if we see, first option, if we have the missing values in the less than 5% observation, less than 5% of the observations we have the missing value, then we have an option, we could remove the observations. We could remove the rows. We could remove observations. Okay, does that make sense to everyone? Okay, we could remove the rows, the observations. First option. Second option, for this missing value, we could impute central tendency. Central tendency means here I am talking about the mean, median and mode. We could impute those values. We could impute the mean, we could impute the median or mode, whatever. It depends. After getting the behavior and the nature of the data, we select which central tendency we have to put over there. And third one, we will use some business logic. And according to that business logic, we put the value. So I will explain you the business logic later on with the outliers, so you could better understand. But with outliers, we have three options again. For outliers, first option is the same. If outliers in the less than 5% of the observations, we could remove those observations. Does that make sense to you? Second thing, here we could not impute the central tendency in the outliers. If we have the outliers, we could do the flooring and capping. Flooring and capping. So I will explain you what does it mean. And the third is the same. We could use the business logic. Second option is difference only, but the other first and the third option are the same for the missing values. So first I explain you what does it mean by flooring and capping. Whenever we get the data, we do the univariate analysis. Univariate analysis, what does it mean? We analyze each and every variable. Okay. So how do we analyze? First, we see the central tendency, first point. Through the central tendency, we find out mean, median, mode. Second thing, we see the dispersion, deviation, or the dispersion of the data. And third thing is the shape of the data. If we talk about the shape of the data, data may be normal, data may be skewed, positive skewed or the negative skewed. So first we see the skewness of the data, the normality of the data first we see. If data is normal, so we get the histogram or the curve, density curve in this way. This is the normal data, the bell shape. In the bell-shaped data, there may be some outliers on the both tail, lower tail and the right, left tail and the right tail. And we have to find out the critical point of that outliers. Okay. So that is the critical point, maybe here, here, maybe here. How we get this upper limit of critical point and the lower limit of critical point? So if the data is normal, we use one formula for upper limit. We use mean deviation. Does that make sense to everyone? So in this way, we get that. Now, am I audible? Yeah. Vijayanand. There is some problem in internet. I know that here, and from my side, I will see what is the problem. I will complain it. Why it is going again and again. Okay. So this my voice. So here I explain you. Third univariate analysis is the shape of the data. We see through the histogram, through the box plot, or the density plot. Okay. We could get through that. Now it is okay. My voice is okay now or not? Okay. There is some problem in the internet from 2 or 3 days. We are facing some problem because they are converting line in fiber. So we are getting some problem here in this area. And so this through this we could find it out. We find out these values, and whatever the value is more than this upper limit, we adjust it. It is called the capping. If you have the, suppose in our batch in this workshop, what is the age range of the person who are attending this workshop? What would be the age range? Can you guess? What should be? 18 to 30? I think 20 to 50. It's okay. It should be the range. No? Up to 50 years, people could attend, maybe attending this session, and from 20 to 50. So here this limit is my 20 and this limit is my 50. But the someone has the age of 65 years is also attending this session, and someone is age of 15 is also attending, or the 18 is also attending this session. So these are the outliers for me. If I have calculated through this formula, so I am getting upper limit 50 and the lower limit 20, suppose, hypothetically. So if the some value is more than this 50 is outliers for me. Now I will explain you Rajendram for the skewed data also. It is for the normalized data. Later on we will see how we work with skewed data. Okay. So what we do, we will impute this outlier value here instead of 65. So we will write the 50 here. So it will come to this place. Okay. So whatever the value more than outliers, we substitute the outlier critical value for that. Does that make sense to everyone? Here also it is called the capping. This process is called the capping. And if we have the value less than our lower limit of outlier, then we substitute instead of 18, 20. This process is called flooring. Does that make sense to everyone? Flooring and capping. Yeah. Okay. So this process, so it is a normal data. Normal data is mostly the mean is the central tendency for normal data. Mean is a very core of that normal data. The mean is the central tendency, is the reliable, most reliable. So when you put this, so the mean will change or not? After substituting, imputing these values, flooring and capping, the mean will remain same or it will change? Mean will change because we have already studied that the mean is very sensitive to extreme values. So if we have taken earlier the mean of that data, that variable, okay, something like you have taken 52, not the 52, 52 is the outlier, critical point. So here we see the 32. Okay, or you have adjusted these outliers and after the mean will change, instead of 32 it may be some other value. So you have to again measure the mean and consider the new mean in the further analysis. Does that make sense to you? No, don't use the previous mean. No? You use the new mean after adjusting the outliers and use that mean in the further analysis. Does that make sense to you? Okay. So that I have explained that thing, the mean is very, very sensitive to extremes. Okay. So sometimes people what do? People measure the mean before first when they understand the data, univariate analysis, measure the mean and then work with these outliers, and then they don't measure the mean again. They use the previous mean. So it will mislead the result. It may mislead the result or not. It will mislead the result. Generally, we should have to remove the outliers whenever we do the modeling. In the inference analysis, sometimes people don't remove the outliers. But I have seen that if we don't remove the outliers, we get the upward results in the hypothesis. When we remove the outliers and again we do the test of those hypotheses, we get the expected results as we want. I have seen this thing. So we should consider the outliers. It is for our normal data. If our data is skewed, it may be positive skewed. This is the positive skewed. In the positive skewed, you will get the outlier on the right hand side, upper limit you will get only, or it may be negative skewed. In this sort of data, you will get out there on the left side, it is the lower limit mostly. So here in the skewed data, we rely on the median instead of mean. So the formula for finding out the upper limit is third quartile plus 1.5 into IQR. IQR the interquartile range, which is nothing, it is the Q3 minus Q1. Third quartile minus first quartile. For the lower limit, we have Q1 minus 1.5 into IQR. Does that make sense to you now? This is for the skewed data. Rajendram ji, now you know that it's clear now how to work with that. This is for not normal data. Okay. But here, because the skewed data, we work on that the group median. So if you measure the median prior that and the later, the median will not change. Median will remain same. It is not sensitive to the outliers, the extreme values. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So this was all about our measure of central tendency, and we will go in deep this also with the univariate analysis when we start the descriptive analysis with R. Then I will explain you in detail everything. But here we are just getting the understanding of these all things. These are the coefficients we are taking, having some formulation, and we got this default value. This is the coefficient we are taking. Okay. These are the coefficients we have to consider this always. Here we are taking 3. I will explain you this way at the time of inferential analysis why we are taking this. Okay, we are not going in that deep. So this was all about the measure of central tendency. Now the second part, we have the measure of dispersion. Measure of dispersion. Can somebody explain me what is dispersion basically? Yeah, someone can. Please, you write on the chat box if someone. Okay. How scores are scattered, correct? Scatter from mean, spread of the data, correct? Deviation in data. Deviation mean I am correct. Measure of spread regards the mean, correct? Can you explain in one word? Spreadness, correct? Correct. I explain you. You are all near to that. But if we talk about the dispersion, it is basically a deviation. You know that. We have two measure of dispersion basically, two type of dispersion we measure. One is a spreadness. Second one is a scatterness. So I will explain you what is a spreadness and what is the scatterness. What is the part of dispersion? So I write some data here. This we have a data. Can someone find the mean of this data? Not the mean, sorry. Okay. So if I talk about the spreadness, don't do anything. I just explain this. If we talk about the spreadness of this data, so we could use the range. Range is what? Maximum minus minimum value. Here the maximum value is 75, with the minimum value is 70, is 2 only. So it is the 73 is our range. Range is the spreadness, how the data is spread, how area it is covering, how line segment or whatever. So that is the spreadness. 73 is the spreadness of data. It is between the two specific points. It is the points we are taking the minimum and the maximum. Sometimes we use the interquartile range Q3 and Q1, or between 2 points of the data. It is only between 2 points of the data. Okay. So if I see the difference between this is 5, 15 minus 7 is 6, 32 minus 15 is 17, and 41 minus 32 is 9, and 75 minus 41 is 70 minus 40 is 35 and 34. Does that make sense to you? Okay, we are getting this 5, 6, 17, 9 and 4, 34. So this is the difference between two consecutive points, and now we find out the mean of this. Find out the mean of this. Please somebody find out the mean of this. What would be the mean of this? Yeah. The mean of this 15 minus 7. Sorry, 15 minus 7 is 8. Okay, correct. I suppose 13 minus 7, so I written here. So other values are same. Okay, that's right. Now find the mean of it. It is 14.6. We are getting the mean. So what I do, I write the 2, then 14.6. The next value I will get 16.6, and then I add on 14.6. It is 30 and 31.2. Then I add 14.6. It is 8, and it is 5 and 314. It is 45.8. Again I add 14.6. So it is now 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 6, 14, 4, and 6, 4, 5, 4, 9, 8 to 6, 14, 9, 10, 0, 1, 4, 5, 6, 60.4. And then I 14.6, so it is now 0, and it is 75. Does that make sense to you? This value, you see. Now this is our average scatterness. What is this? It is average of scatterness. So this thing is called the scatterness of the data. Okay, how your data is scattered, how the points are scattered to each other. Does that make sense to you? Okay, that is the consecutive points. So for the spreadness, we have different measurement. For the scatterness, we have different measurement here. For the spreadness, we have the measurement, first measurement, which is called range. As I already explained about the range, the maximum minus minimum. It is range. And the range of this we have measured, it is 73. I would like to explain you something more about the range. This we have, and I am putting some values over here. This is our 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30. And what we do, I am taking one data from here. This is my data set, which is the A data. And another I am taking from here, which is the B data set. I find out the range of A and B both. Or see what would be the range of A. Range of A is 10 minus 2 is equal to 8. And range of B is 28 minus 20 is equal to 8. Both range are same. If I give you only the range, so can you analyze something through this, both range? If I give the range only, I give the range of A is that and the range of B is 8. Can you analyze something? Can you go to some, get some conclusion out of this? You could not go to any conclusion. Why we are unable to go to any conclusion? Because range is a absolute measure. It is not a relative measure. Okay. You know that the correlation analysis we study, we know that they are the coefficients of the correlation. Karl Pearson coefficients of correlation. There is a specimen rank correlation coefficients and the Kendall correlation coefficients. They are the coefficients. They are the relative measure. So when we have to use the relative measure for the range, we use the coefficient of range instead of range. So by which we could go to some conclusion. So what would be the formula for this, the coefficient of range? It is maximum minus minimum over maximum plus minimum. So if we find out the range of coefficient of range of A, what it would be? 8 over 10 plus 2, 12. So it is 0.67. And if we see the coefficient of range of B, which is 8 over 48, 20 plus 28 is 48. So it is 1 over 6, so it is 0.167. So the coefficient of range of A is 0.67. The coefficient of range of B is 0.167. So what you are understanding with the relation of this coefficient with the data values? Yeah. Now you are getting some understanding the data values and the coefficient of correlation. Can you conclude something through that? Correct, Samuel? The higher coefficient of range means the data is low value data. This taken from the low value data if the coefficient is higher. If the coefficient of range is lower, it means it is the data is higher value data. It is from the high value data. Does that make sense to you? Suppose if you have get the offer from a two company A and B, and both has given the coefficient of range of the salaries of their employees, and they have mentioned the coefficient of salary of coefficient of range of the salary is 0.45 and B says that 0.31. This is the coefficient of range. So which company you would select, A or B? Which company would you prefer to work with? Other things are remain same. Other conditions in the company are same. Okay. Everybody is telling B, correct. Where the coefficient of range is low means the salary value is high in the company B. Okay. So now we understand what does it mean by the coefficient of range. Okay. Why it is important. Now we see some other measures. Second measure is a interquartile range. Interquartile range is nothing, it is the Q3 minus Q1, third quartile minus first quartile. Okay. And if I show you, this is our minimum value, this is our maximum value, and this is our median, and this is our third quartile, and this is our first quartile. So the data between Q3 and Q1 is lie in interquartile range, 50%. And this part is called the whisker, lower whisker and upper whisker. Here the 25% data here and the 25% data. When we use this interquartile range instead of range, can somebody tell me when we use this interquartile range? When we use it? In general, in generic, I want in generic. Okay, I will tell you. When we have higher spreadness is here. Spreadness, not about the scatterness I am talking. I am talking about the high spreadness. Here, between Q3 and maximum, and between Q1 and maximum. If there is high spread, of the data, this line is very long. This line is very long with compared to this segment. Okay, this segment is longer. This segment is longer with compared to this segment. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. Okay. So these are longer. These are longer. The spreadness is higher, both the, but this is not that much. The 25% data is spreaded in a very long area. This 25% is also spread into longer region. Then we use interquartile range and generic. Okay. So the coefficient I talk about, the coefficient of IQR interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1 over Q3 plus Q1. Does that make sense to everyone now? Okay. Now there is another measure. That is, yeah, Ashwin, What do you want to ask? Can ask me. Semi-interquartile range. That is nothing. That is this 25% data, which is very dense. So that is formula is for that Q3 minus Q1 over 2. And the coefficient formula would be same for both. But it is also called the quartile deviation. Does that make sense? Because if we find out the coefficient of semi-interquartile range, we write in this way. Finally, we get Q3 minus Q1 over Q3 plus 1. This is the same. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. These were between 2 points only. Okay. So these were the spreadness. Now we talk about the scatteredness. It is last one, the quartile deviation mostly used in the laboratory, biological laboratory work or the pure science laboratory work. They use this quartile deviation. They use the data like that. You know that in the COVID-19, they take samples, whether you are positive or negative. And they don't use the quartile deviation. They have the sample, they culture it, whatever, but they have seen the value. They have taken the decision through the quartile, the semi-interquartile range, and that dense area. And then they could give the result whether someone is positive or negative. They are not doing that way. They are just taking the sample and whatever they are doing, they are not doing in that way, or that they are giving the false positive report. So somebody doesn't have COVID-19 or the corona, they are telling that you are COVID positive because they are not testing properly. So the quartile deviation is required over there. Okay, it is very technical thing we use in the laboratory. The laboratory data in the genetics or this all culture, then we use the quartile deviation instead of this range and these all things. Okay, is that any doubt now? Same spread is 2. What I could not understand. Same spread is 2. Rajendram, I am not understanding same spread as 2. Yeah. Same spread as 2 means that the interquartile range. Yeah. Maybe same, but they use the 25%, the dense one, that value. This was all about the measure of this spreadness. Now we see the measure of scatteredness. Scatteredness is not from between 2 points. It is between one particular point and then uh, uh, different points, not between 2 points only. It is the between many points. So as we have seen that the average scatteredness, that was the different points we have get the deviation, and then we add on the deviation, then we find out the mean of that, and that is the average scatteredness. One more idea they have found that why we should not measure the deviation from central tendency. It would be better for us. In spite of using a standard, using average scatterness, we should find out the uh, deviation from some central tendency. So I explain you that thing first. Hypothetically, I am making few points here so you could better understand the thing. These are the data points I have, and I'm giving the name them. This is the x1, this is my x2, this is my x3 and x4 and x5 and so on up to xn I have. It is x minus n minus 1. In this way I have these all data points, n data points I have. And there are some central tendency I have also. This is my mean, this is my median, and this is my mode. Okay. And I want to see the deviation of these all data points from a particular central tendency like mean. So I will get through this and I will see that here in this way, and I take some, I change the color. So this is the deviation. Then I take the deviation of second point, then the third point, then the fourth point, and then fifth point, then all the points, not only this much. I'm using, I could not do the all, but we have to take the deviation from each and every point. Okay, not only this one, each and every point. So how many deviations we will get here? We will get the n deviation because we have n data points. Okay, so we get the n deviation over here, or if we get the summation of these deviation, we always get 0 because the sum of the points may be greater than mean or some may be the smaller than mean. And if you get the deviation from actual mean, you always get the summation 0. Are you agree with that or not? Yeah. So what we do, we use some other technique. So we convert the negative values in positive. So we have one way to take the absolute value. And after getting the absolute value, so we get the negative into positive and positive would be positive. So we get some value when we do the summation. And then we divide it by n, total number of data. So it is the mean of deviation or the mean of absolute deviation. We are taking the deviation, then we have convert them in absolute value, and then we divide by n. So it is the mean absolute deviation. What does it mean? Mean of absolute deviation. So mean absolute deviation. Okay. And because this deviation we have taken through the mean, so it is called the delta x bar. The mean absolute deviation through mean. I could also take this mean absolute deviation through median. In this way, I could take through median also. So at that moment, what will happen? Sigma xi minus me over n. It is also the mean absolute deviation, but through median. So we could write delta me. Similarly, we could take it from the mode also. So that would be like that, like this. Does that make sense to you now? Okay. So this is the mean absolute deviation. If you write the mean absolute deviation somewhere, suppose I have a mean absolute deviation 5.2. So can you go to the conclusion that from which value I have find out this through which central tendency from median, mean or mode? If I say only the mean MAD is 5.2, can you guess it? From which central tendency I have got this deviation? How could you say that it is from the mean? We could also get this mean absolute deviation through median. The mean absolute deviation we could take through the mode also. How could you say, Vijayanand, it is the mean? It may be through the median also. This may be. Yeah. Nobody is replying. No one has answer of this. Can we guess which central tendency we could use it? We have no way to know. Correct, Aditya. We don't have any way to know. If I just write the MAD is this much, mean absolute deviation. We could not say from which measure tendency I have measured the deviation. We don't have any idea. This is the demerit of this mean absolute deviation. So mean absolute deviation, we got 3 demerits. So I will explain you one by one. The first was that no specific central tendency. We have no specific central tendency by which we could measure it. Okay. Second thing, algebraically, absolute value is wrong, not applicable. Arithmetically it is so, but algebraically it is not. Third thing, it is a unidirectional. Yeah, one direction. So what does it mean? One directional. You know this all formula, and can we get the negative value of delta x bar or ME or delta z? Can we get the mean absolute deviation negative? We cannot get negative value. So suppose if you are having a 10th standard result of 3 sections ABC, section A, section B, section C, these are the mean marks. It is the 45, it is the 62, it is the 31. And there is some standard mean absolute deviation we are watching. Here we see here is 5, here is 8, or here is 2. This is the mean absolute deviation because we have the positive value. So we will get only the one direction, positive direction only. Will not have the negative direction. Deviation is always bidirectional, just like a pendulum. You see the pendulum deviates both the direction. Back and forth. So, but here it is only the one direction. Does that make sense to everyone? It should deviate in the both directions, the positive on the upper side of the mean and the lower side of the mean on the same distance. Okay. So they have decided to do something standard. So they have given the name itself the standard deviation. The first demerit we have that there is no specific central tendency. So there is, it will be taken through the mean only. Deviation would be taken through mean only. So this is the specific one, standard deviation. Second thing, algebraically absolute value to be taken is wrong. So what if you do the minus 2 square, you get the 4, and the 2 square, you also get the 4. So we are taking the square. We are taking the square of deviation. Square of deviations. And we get the square of deviation, then we divide it by total number of deviations, and we get the mean of square of deviation. And then we get the square root of this. When we get the square root, we get the positive and negative sign. It is the two-dimensional, bidimensional law. So what is this? If we see the formula for the standard deviation, it is the xi minus x bar, that is the same, but we are getting the square of this, then we are getting the summation and dividing it by n and taking the square root, and the square root if you take, you will get the plus and minus sign. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. So now it is the bidirectional, or we could mention here, we could put this in the downside also. Does that make sense to everyone now? Is there any doubt with this? So this is all about the standard deviation, and there is a variance also. Variance is just the square of standard deviation. If we take the square of this, so we can remove this square root sign, and we get the summation of xi minus x bar square over n. It is the mean of the square of deviation only. And there is, I must want to tell you about this coefficient of this. If they are using the one directional, they are using mean absolute deviation only. That is the one directional error. That is a standard error. Rajendra. That is a standard error, not a standard deviation. And I will explain you this standard error in our inferential analysis chapter. What does it mean by the standard error? Okay. How does it measure? The basic concept behind the standard error I will explain over there. Now we talk about the coefficient of standard deviation is SD over mean, and the coefficient of variance SD over mean into 100, or sometimes we use percent also. This is the difference only. There is no sigma square in the variance. We use the sigma. with the coefficient. So why does we use this variance instead of variance? Why we use this coefficient of variance? When we have to measure the consistency of the data, we have to measure the consistency of the data or the stability of the data, or the opposite of this is the variability of the data. Variability just opposite of the consistency or the stability. Whenever somebody asks you to measure the consistency of the data, then you measure the coefficient of variance. Don't write the variance value only. Okay, variance just show the variability point, the how the how data is variability of the data generally. See through the variance, we take an idea to the variance. But whenever you have to measure it, you have to write the measurement of the consistency, measurement of the variability. Then you use the coefficient of variance. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Is there any doubt up to now? Uh, it is not a measurement of spreadness. Vijay Anand, first to understand this. It is the measurement of scatterness. You could say that is the more scattered data. Does that make sense to you now? Okay. Understand the spreadness and the scatterness. Spreadness is between only the 2 points, like the maximum minus minimum, Q3 minus Q1, in this way. But the scatterness is between xi minus x bar. So x1 minus x bar, x2 minus x bar, x3 minus x bar. We are taking the mean of this. We are taking the deviation of the various points. Now, I think you could you better understand this thing, the scatterness and the spreadness. Okay. So next thing what we are going to study about the correlation analysis, which is the last part. Which of the measurement of scatter is more important is the SD. SD and the variance both are important. No, measurement of scatterness, you could through the SD you could see the scatterness. But if you want to measure the consistency, I am talking about the consistency. You are talking about the consistency or the stability of the data. Then you should measure the coefficient of variance. Otherwise, the SD is okay. Okay. Different. We will not go in deep in the correlation analysis. I will just explain you it. Suppose this is my x-axis, this is my y-axis, and this is my origin. And there are a few data points. First, I explain you the correlation first. We are taking the correlation between distance and time. And the speed is constant. We are not changing the speed. So as the distance increase, the time will increase or decrease?
It will increase.
Increase. Yeah. If we decrease the distance, the time will decrease or increase. If I decrease the distance,
The time will decrease as well.
decrease. Okay. So it is in the same direction. If both in the same direction, if the x is increasing, y is also increasing, x is decreasing, y is also decreasing, that means it is a positive correlation. Okay, I explain you here. This data I am creating. And you see the x is increasing, y is also increasing. X is increasing and y is also increasing. So this type of correlation, if you make a scatter graph like this, it is called a positive correlation. Suppose if these all points lie on the same line, these all points lie on this line. Lie on the same line, all points. They are not spread scattered now. So this is the perfect positive correlation. Does it make sense to you? What is positive and what is the perfect positive correlation? And the value of correlation lies between -1 and 1. So it is perfect positive means it is the 1. The correlation coefficient would be 1 for the perfect positive. And for the positive, it is between 0 and 1. Okay. Now, if we have a data, now I talk about the speed and time. And now the distance is constant. If I increase the speed, the time will decrease or increase. If I increase the speed, time will decrease. Or if I decrease the speed, the time will increase or decrease. So it will increase. If I reduce my speed, the time it will take more time to reach the destination. So if it is the opposite direction, x is increasing and y is decreasing. So it means this is my x-axis, this is my x-axis, this is my y-axis, this is my origin, and these are the data points. So you see here the x is increasing and the y is decreasing. So it is negative correlation. Similarly, if this all point lie on the same line, so then what does it mean? Perfect negative correlation. The value is -1. Does that make sense to everyone? Now, how do we interpret this? If we have, suppose if we have like this data, not the interpretation, first we talk about the data again. Uh, we have a data like that. Just not getting it. There is no trend we are getting here. Not neither increasing nor decreasing. So there is no correlation. Biserial correlation, everything I will explain later, but we are not studying here because we have to understand this correlation with respect to the descriptive analysis only. Okay. So I'm not explaining that all things here. So now how do we interpret this correlation? I explain you. Just a moment, I take this line. Better understand with this. Here you see we have the value -1, and here we have the value +1. Here we have the value 0, and here 0.25, 0.75, -0.25, -0.75. -1 is a perfect negative correlation. +1 is the perfect positive correlation. 0 is the no correlation. If you have the correlation, you have measured the correlation, it is between the 0 and 0.25, then it is the low degree positive correlation. If it is between 0.25 and 0.75, it is the moderately positive correlation. Moderately positive correlation. If it is between 0.75 and 1, then it is the high degree positive correlation. Similarly, on the below the 0, it is the low degree negative, moderately negative, and high degree negative. Does that make sense to everyone? How do we interpret the correlation value? So this was all about the theoretical part. We have finished up to now. And just I explain you how to download the R programming in R Studio in your system and the laptop. And you download and install it in your laptop in the system. And from tomorrow we will start with R practical. Practically we see how to write the code, what are the data types, and how we operate that R Studio. Okay. P-values, Rajendram, here we are not talking about the p-value. P-value we consider in inferential analysis. We consider in the predictive analysis. But here in the descriptive, there is no p-value requirement. Okay, there is a requirement of the measure of center tendency. There is a requirement of the measure of dispersion. There is a requirement of the shape of the data. Okay, that is the part of inferential analysis. In the regression analysis also, is correlation affected by outliers? Of course, why not? Maybe affected. It will be affected. If you don't remove the outliers, then it will misguide you. Okay. Regression analysis we will cover with the inferential analysis or the predictive analysis part. Okay, there I will tell you about the p-value. P-value is important over there in the inferential analysis. Regression analysis is the part of inferential and as well as predictive. Okay. Now I explain you how to download those. First, you have to download the R programming, and after download and installing the R programming, you have to download the R Studio and install the R Studio. Okay. So how do we download the R programming? So you just write on the Google search download R programming, and you will get the site on the top of that, the cran.r-project.org. This site you will get over there, and you click on this. If you have the Windows, then you will get this installation download 4.0.3 is the new version. It is the 85 megabytes and the 32 and 64 bit you will get it. So whatever the configuration, it will come in the later when you install it. Then you have to choose the 32 bit or the 64 bit, or you could choose the both also. So that is the way. Just click on here, it will be download in your system. Then you click on that particular download and install it as per the instructions is given. Follow the instruction and install it. After installing R programming, you download the R Studio. So you write down the download R Studio. There is a site for the rstudio.com, and you just click on this and you will get this page. And here you will get the free RStudio Desktop, RStudio Desktop Pro, RStudio Server, RStudio Server Pro. This is the professional. Because the RStudio has been taken, some mistake has been taken by the Microsoft. So Microsoft don't give anything free. It charges everything. So they are charging for the Pro model, but due to the community of the R, they have there is a member of memorandum of understanding that the R Studio and the R would always be the open source for the general people. So it is here. We have to use the R Studio Desktop. We could download it from here. If you click here, you will get here, and you just click here, and then you will download it. Or you could download from here also. If you have the Windows, you could download the Mac, Ubuntu, and whatever you have the system, operating system, you could download it and then install it. After installing, if you see here in the taskbar here in this, so you see there are two R I have. One is this one. This the R is written, and this is the R in this pair. So this R is for the R programming. This is for the R Studio. First, I show you the R programming. So it's the R programming GUI, graphical user interface. Here you see the console only at this place. Or whatever you write here, x is equal to 5, and sorry, x is equal to 5, y is equal to 7, and I do the operation x plus y. Then you see I am getting 12 over here. So this is the console, but if I close it, I could not save this console, whatever I have written on the console, or it is not as interactive it should be, because we are the non-technical person using this, so it is not possible to work on this. So they have developed one IDE, integrated development environment. So integrated development environment, what you will get, I will explain you. When you open first time R Studio, you will get this three window. One window, two window, three window. One window is the console window you will see here. And second is the environment, history, connection, trial. I remove this. And the third is this files and plots, whatever. So if you write in the console, if you have seen the console in the GUI, the same console is this: x is equal to 5, y is equal to 7, and x plus y, I am getting 12. So, but when you shut down this R, the matter from the console will be omit. It could not be reusable next time. So for that purpose, we had to use the script. So how we get the script, I will explain you. So I remove this first. And you see here on the left corner, I click here, there is a R script is written, the top of menu. And I just click here, so I will get this untitled one script. So if I write here, X is equal to 5 and I enter, and Y is equal to 7, then I enter. And if I want X plus Y, I enter, I am not getting anything in the console. Because I have written the script, I have not run the script. Writing a script is a different thing. When you write the script, you use the enter sign, it will not run. If you have to run the script, then you have to use some other option for running the script. The first option, you put your cursor on the line which you want to run, and then you click this run button. So you see, you will get that value. Now the X is equal to 5 is now in your global environment. The R environment you are getting this. The X value of X is 5. Now I run this again, so I get the Y equal to 7. So here also console you will write you will get the same thing. It will be print on the console. Now X plus Y if I write, because I have not given any object name to this. So I will get the result in the console only. So I will get the 12. I will not get anything in the global environment because I have not given any name to this X plus Y operation. There is no object name. I have not assigned any object name. So this is a way. Another way we have, we put the cursor on the line, then press Control and Enter. Control Enter. So it will run. It is the short key. Control then Enter. So in this way you could use this also. So this is the basic I have explained you. You please download our programming and our studio in your system, and from tomorrow we start the practical with R. Okay, it's very simple and the easiest language of the world. Okay, it would be very interesting the tomorrow session if we work with this and we see the magic of this. I explain you some other windows also. Yeah, I explain you. This is our script window. If your system shut down automatically, incidentally, accidentally shut down. So it's suppose the system shut down, and you know that I'm using don't save. Okay. When it accidentally shut down, then it will be don't save. And again, I run this R Studio, open it, and you see what happens. Your script where you have leave it, it is there. So your script is saved in a real time. If you have not given the name to the script, it is the untitled one only. In spite of that, it has been saved. So whatever you have written in the script, you could reuse it again and again. Okay. First thing is that is the specific in the script. Most of the language, same thing happens. The second window is the console window where you get the result. Whatever you run in the script, you get the output here. You got the print here. This is the global environment. Whatever the value you assign the object, and you get here. Okay. And there is another option is the history. History, the whatever you have typed, you could see here. Okay. Connections I will explain you later. The tutorial, you could see the tutorials here. Some tutorials you could start the tutorial. You could see the tutorial here. And here you see the files in the work. Tomorrow I will explain you about this project. So in this project, the files, whatever I have in that folder, I can see here. And if I delete any file from here, it will be deleted from my system. So don't use that activity from here. Don't delete any file from here. It will be removed from your system. So very careful. And here you get the plot. I will show you one plot, the simple plot. Just a minute. Here we get the plots. Okay, this is the histogram I have prepared for one default data set in R, which we use in the learning process. So that is the empty cast data set. We are using one histogram here. These are the packages which we use in the R for the different functions. So these are the packages I have in the R. Some packages come with R in default and some you have to install. So I will explain you later on how to install the data packages and how to run that package in our R. This is the help. You could find out the help if you want to know about the standard deviation SD. You just write SD and you will get the SD and their syntax you will get over here xna.rm follows. What is X and what is NA? So you know that this data set, the mileage is a continuous data. Is if I want to know the SD of that empty cars mileage data set, I will get the SD over here and you see the standard deviation is 6.02. If we want to know the mean, so I could easily find out the mean of this variable. I don't have to write down the formula. I just have to write down the data set name first. And then I had to use the dollar sign. And when I will apply the dollar sign after the data set name, I will get the drop down menu of all the variables, all the columns. So the first column is the mileage. I am taking MPG and I am getting the mean is 20.09 and the standard deviation I have taken 6.02. So in this way, we could do very easily the statistical analysis in R, and we have so many options to do the things in R. But that we could not do in the SPSS. We could do in R, and there is no limit. Okay. R download process I explained you. First you download the R programming, okay, and install it. Download the R programming, then install the R programming, run it, and whatever the instructions, get the instruction and follow it, and it will be installed in your system. And after that, you download the R Studio and install the R Studio. Okay, it will automatically integrate with R programming. R programming is basically a kitchen of the restaurant, and R Studio is the sitting area of that restaurant. So without kitchen, you could not run the R Studio. R programming is must. Okay. So, Mr. Mukesh, are you there? Mr. Mukesh nowadays is a little bit busy. Just call him. Yeah, there is cloud platform is also for R. there is R Cloud, R Studio Cloud. You could use that also. I see. I explain you how to use the R Cloud. I explain you that. I share my screen with you. You could also use, if you don't want to install it, you could use it that with just a moment, Mukeshji. Just I'm showing them the R Cloud.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes.
So here you could log in. You could make an account. You could register here, and it is the free. Or you could join it, and you could use the R Studio here. I have not used, so I will just see. R Studio is enabled, and here we have to use it. Credentials, cookies, info. Just a moment. I just have to see from where we could get that thing. Oh. User settings, it is setting. I have to see that. I have not used it, but people use it. You could see, and I will explain you. It enabled, and from where we have to enter. Just do it. I do it. It is from the server side. So I am not looking for. Okay, I will see it, and so lose install package. Installed the package, default packages will be installed altogether with R. Okay, so I will explain tomorrow how to run this because I have not run that in cloud. I use the server of R, but R Cloud I have not used because I use always in my system. Okay, so I don't have any idea about that. So I just stop this, and Mr. Mukesh is there. It is over to you, Mr. Mukesh. You are not audible, sir.
Okay, okay, okay. Now,
Yes, sir, audible.
all right. So I think today's session was very much nice, sir.
Yes, sir.
Things we have learned, and let's connect tomorrow same time and at 7 o'clock or 7:05, something like that. We'll have little because we have 5 to 7 program, so maybe we start little bit late, 5 minutes. So 7:05, something like that. I have also shared the that payment system for the participants from Nepal. People who is feeling problem paying from Nepal, you can pay to the Nepal account, and then I have shared that. Anybody has any other queries on that part can mail us. For Nigeria, I have already shared. Have any problem, you can connect with our representative or partner, Ukobasi, Iknam there. So he will help you. And of course, you can pay through PayPal. PayPal is acceptable there. Any other country, any participants have any problem, just feel free to contact us. Most probably day after, I think till tomorrow we'll have the separate batch. Maybe from Thursday we'll have merged the both batch. What do you say, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes.
We'll see, and we'll inform
We'll
you.
see the strength in the both batches.
And we'll. All right. Thank you very much. All the study material has been already posted on the Google link, Google Drive. So those who have paid for the study material, certificate, and video recording of the session, you have the access already. You can just go through that. You will see the day one folder is there. Then today's session will be get updated. Day two, likewise every day it will be get updated. All right. And this folder especially is for you. Please do not share in on the social media or anywhere. It is particularly those who have paid. It is only for you. All right. Thank you very much. Let's connect tomorrow. 7 o'clock.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you have done it now.
So those who enjoy the session can thumbs up and click on the clap button, reaction button for sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.